So there are 5 headlines that we have to talk about with Barcelona's 2-0 win over Almeria. And as much as I think the narrative should be, all 5 might be about Gerard Pique. But that's not how I did it, because honestly, I do want to give the proper time to kind of say farewell, say see you later to Gerard Pique. So only one of these 5 headlines is going to be about the captain for FC Barcelona. Well, he's a second captain, but he wore the captain's armband today because of the importance of the day and the fanfare and all that stuff. So let's get into it. Of course, Gerard Pique's final home match at the Camp Nou, and the 5 other headlines, or should I say the 4 other headlines from Barcelona's 2-0 win over Almeria. Headline 1 is Fins Aviat, which means see you soon in Catalan, because for Gerard Pique, that's exactly what this day represents. It's not a goodbye, it's not a big farewell, but it is one of those see you soons. Of all the legends that have gone, whether it's Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Xavi was the one that we expected was going to come back in some capacity. He kind of did say that he would. Iniesta and Messi, who really knows? Puyol, the same thing. You didn't know because of Puyol's personality if he wanted to return as sporting director, what have you. And Dani Alves, the same thing. When he left for PSG in 2016, when the club kind of kicked him out in 2016, you were wondering in what manner he would return. But Gerard Pique, the eyes have been on the prize for a while now. It's so weird that a player has had his eyes so myopically focused on a position at the club. And that's why that Camp Nou crowd chanted president at Gerard Pique. Yes, Juan Laporta is the president, but Juan Laporta in his second term fully understands that someday the man for the job is going to be Gerard Pique. And you could argue that he stepped away now because of the good faith that he wanted to keep with that Camp Nou faithful. And as far as the big event of him saying goodbye, that's what was so interesting about the day and him getting cheered to me. Somebody did bring to my attention on the YouTube channel, so a credit to Richard Checkmate in the comments on the latest podcast YouTube video for the feedback. I made the claim that it's just the young kids who aren't viewing Pique with any reverence, but I do want to add to that. There are decades-long fans that are upset with him for the ways he held the club hostage recently with his salary, for even choosing to stay this year at his number. To clear things up, I think only the trolls and those not old enough to have seen the best of Pique are happy to see him go without understanding what he represents as a club legend. And as Pique proved, it's hard to know when it's your time. And I would assume it is even harder to say goodbye when you're getting paid tens of millions of euros that will pretty much last you for the rest of your lives and be that generational wealth that these millionaires want to build. Still, the reason why this is only one headline is because, as I said, I do want to focus in some long-form content later on about Gerard Pique, his legacy at FC Barcelona. I had him on my top 50 that became a top 75 all-time players list. I felt like it was maybe a bit too high even 2 years ago, and now I'm wondering if the legacy has been tarnished by, we'll say, the mistakes on the field he's made in the last year and the mistakes he's made off the field over the last year. And I don't know if those are actually worse to his legacy than the ones that he actually made on it. Whether, of course, when the fans were jeering him against Inter Milan, when he's a big reason that FC Barcelona are no longer in the Champions League. Of course, they started this season in the preseason, jeering him because of the secure situation. For if the reports and rumors are to be believed, he is in no way the hero of that story. But yet, the Camp Nou crowd cheered him today with full voice. And I am kind of proud of the Culés at the Camp Nou today, because they did kind of prove, I have a thesis that it's almost impossible to keep 2 things in our brains, especially as Culés on the internet, but I am kind of proud of the crowd for doing just that today, for understanding the faults of Gerard Pique now, the 35-year-old businessman that stood before them, while also still seeing the young man that they watched grow up and the one that truly does love FC Barcelona, even if his interests seem to be opposite the club's at times. And to speak of the match itself, it wasn't too hard of a day. And to speak of the match itself, it wasn't too hard of a day to be sending him off, because Almeria didn't really bring too much of a challenge on the road today, and you could tell that they had their eyes on other matches where I think they could have believed that they might have got points. Today was not that day, and Gerard Pique, with strength and 50-50s, he did exactly what he needs to do. He sprayed some diagonal balls, those balls that I think a part of me is definitely going to miss, the ones that would go out to the wing, even in the same third of the field. That can be difficult because they may bend a little bit too much, but he always put that knuckle on them. But they would fall in when his outside back would get forward. And I know he hasn't really had an outside back that has liked to get forward. It can make those kind of runs since Dani Alves, but Balde did it to good effect. The only thing missing, of course, from the night was a goal. But it must be said, Gerard Pique has scored at least one goal in every of the 14 seasons he has been in the first team since he debuted alongside Busquets and Pedro back in 2008. So he has certainly scored his fair share of goals at the Camp Nou in front of that crowd. And I don't think he, unlike Mascherano, people ask, so should he be willing taking that penalty kick, that being Gerard Pique instead of Lewandowski? The answer is no. At that point in the game, Lewandowski is the guy that you trust to score the goals. I know he missed it. It's a shame that he missed it. That probably was going to be one of the headlines if Barca doesn't win 2-0 pretty comprehensively. But yeah, I think Lewandowski still should have taken it instead of Pique. Pique even pointed at him, indicating as such and agreeing with me there. So Gerard Pique doesn't wind up getting a goal. He almost did actually in the 13th minute on a header attempt, and you could tell that he was getting forward. But I think when the game was kind of over, he knew that it was over. And Barcelona, as they slowed things down and kind of built up a little bit, not of the momentum, but of the sentimentality that was coming by the 80th minute when he finally made his swan song off the field. So there it is, Gerard Pique, his final headline from my 5 headlines, but certainly not the last I'm going to speak of him this week or in totality, because I'm going to continue to talk about the legends of this club, and he is certainly one of those. 2 is good on the left, good on the right. Our other 4 headlines are a little bit quicker. Of course, there's the 2 goals to talk about, but we must talk about Alejandro Balde. As much as, like I said with Lewandowski, seems like I keep making headlines about Balde, game in and game out. And that's because before our very eyes, he seems to be improving game to game. First, it was him as a left back, where at the beginning of the season I asked, is he good enough? Should he be here? I go, oh, maybe he is the best left back on the roster right now. And then the last few games where he's been on the right side because Barca really don't have any center backs. We saw Christensen come back today, but yeah, they're so short on center backs and especially on right backs that Xavi can trust, with Roberto out again. Completely was saying that, but Roberto's out. Bellerin really shouldn't be trusted on the depth chart above of Alejandro Balde on the right side. So Balde's at the right back spot at the moment. And Balde made Pique's job even easier. He was really good in this game again, and that's why he's another headline. He now has people without hyperbole asking, is Alejandro Balde Barcelona's best left back and right back at the moment? And after watching today's game, that answer is yes. His positional sense today was excellent, turning the weakness of his right foot into a strength with underlapping runs to leave Dembele and later Rafinha in 1v1 situations, as well as solid defending when leading with his opposite foot. He was forward-thinking with his runs today, right up the middle of the field, consistently unbalancing Almeria. Whether they played a 5 or 4 at the back, it didn't matter. His underlapping runs, Torres and Fati's runs through the middle, and really good diagonals from all of Pique, Busquets, Pedri, and De Jong all set not only Balde up for success with plenty of room for Balde to receive the ball and then push forward, but Almeria and that 5 at the back was also cut out because of the movement of the forwards in those half spaces and the wingers not necessarily being stuck on the touchline, but 2 overlapping fullbacks showing you that Barcelona numerically can overload the horizontal space, which make that vertical space in those diagonal balls. That's why Busquets was also good today, because those diagonal balls were on, because there was so much horizontal space with verticality, because you had 2 different options, the winger and the fullback, that could both get forward on both flanks. And so Barcelona could use the entire field today. And Almeria, again, whether it's 4 or 5, it didn't matter. They just overwhelmed them. And Balde was a huge part of that. 3 is on the front foot, kind of continuing with that theme of the fact that Barcelona did dominate today. It felt very comfortable. As I said, it was all about Pique and the emotion or whatever, but Almeria very much could have spoiled that. But with over 70% possession, Barcelona just dominated this game. Pedri was doing his thing, De Jong was doing his thing. Yeah, we even saw kind of a vintage Busquets and a vintage Alba today. Maybe they were a little bit emboldened because their friend, their other sacred cow, was calling it quits today, but I think Busquets and Alba did deserve plaudits for just having veteran smarts today. Alba, from minute 1 all the way to minute 9, really pushed. And as I said, when your fullbacks are operating at a high level, especially when the rest of your team is as talented as Barcelona's is, you're going to be on the front foot in the La Liga match. And that continues to be the mentality of this team in the Liga. Even though in the first half you could say they struggle, they didn't take their chances. They had almost a 2.65 expected goals in that first half and still 0 goals. Yeah, not a great sign from Barcelona. In the second half, they didn't really play as well, even to begin the second half, yet that's where they got their goals. Not necessarily against a run of play, but we'll say not when you would expect them to get them. And Ferran Torres and Ansu Fati, 2 players who didn't score again, it continues to be the thing that's missing. It feels like something is lacking confidence, but I know it's trite, I know it's overdone to say their movement is what I'm excited about, but it was against Almeria, who was playing that 5 at the back and then the 4 at the back. Those two continue to come inside and allow Lewandowski another reference point and put him in 1v1 situations, meaning you're also putting your wingers in 1v1 situations so nobody can slide over, and then Alba's out there in 1v1 on the left wing. I thought both players, Ansu and Ferran Torres, worked really well with Jordi Alba, and I think that brings up a huge question on whether or not Marcos Alonso, when all those center backs come back and are healthy, should he even be on the left side? Yeah, he can get forward sometimes, but his lack of dribbling, his inability to play a final ball the way Alba does, I don't know. I think Alba's just better than Marcos Alonso at this moment, and that's another reason why Barcelona are on the front foot in this match. Barcelona also had double-digit corners, and they earned those. Unfortunately, they couldn't make anything of it. As I said, they were making chances. They just weren't converting until those 2 goals broke through. Now, as good as it was, the narrative of this match could have completely changed, though, in that first half. Because when you're on the front foot, you know Barcelona, they're going to be backpedaling at least once. And today, it was De Jong. He was the man of the match, and yet he could have also been the scapegoat. When he had that mistake to Ramazani, who should have scored. But Ter Stegen played it perfectly, maybe with some help from Marcos Alonso. But for De Jong, was able to shake that off, and Barcelona really recovered. That was the one bad moment in this game. Headline 4 is solo Dembele. Time to talk about the 2 goals, because they're the ones that decided this. And listen, that Dembele goal was really, really good. Just like Jalil, the purist, and I spoke about on the podcast yesterday, when Dembele takes a first touch that sets himself up for success, when he comes inside in 1v1 situations, it's very hard to stop him when he's making the right decision. Because all the physical tools are there, as long as he's making the right choices. But before I do praise Dembele, the Busquets pass was insane. It perfectly summed up Busquets. With Balde and De Jong both driving forward, instead of finding space further forward for them, Busquets dropped in to receive the ball. Then he delivered a tremendous ball, 50 yards, perfectly behind the left back, former Barca B left back Akame, by the way. And then yes, Dembele's goal was the right decision, meshed perfectly with his quality. His first touch took him away from the defender, and then he immediately cut inside. Taking a little bit away from that goal, Almeria did not step to him. The defenders were awful on that play, so Almeria was helping Dembele look a little bit good on that goal. But anyway, he let it fly and was on target. But it's also totally fair if Kool-Aid's immediately in the comments below bring up the fact that in the 58th minute, when he should have shot about 3 times or past Lewandowski or anyone, he waited too long and Almeria broke it up. Or in the first half, Lewandowski, some terrific vision for him, freed up Torres. Wide open was Dembele. The ball might have been a bit behind him, but all he did was head it right into the goalkeeper. He had a wide open net, heads it right into the goalkeeper. Perfectly today, summing up what Dembele is. His ceiling at the top when things are good, he can score a goal like that. And he can also have some Dembele decisions that leave the game in the balance, or at times for Barcelona mean you're taking an L in the Champions League. And headline 5 for the second goal, right to left and in. That's what this second goal was. It was all about movement. It was all about Barcelona using the ball to their advantage, and it was a vintage Barcelona goal, ending with a rebound for Frenkie de Jong. I think that was maybe the one part that wasn't vintage Barcelona, is that it did come on a rebound after the goalkeeper saved that attempt by Ansu. Barcelona have to play vertically and horizontally, and this goal perfectly summed that up. Balde pushed forward, coming to the middle like he is to do when Xavi puts him on the right. He laid it off to Pedri, who delivered a really accurate ball to Alba, who put in a quality ball to Ansu, who couldn't score, but Frenkie de Jong was right there. Frenkie de Jong's movement today was really bright, and while La Liga Santander did name him the man of the match, I agree with that decision. I think Frenkie de Jong kind of put his imprint on this game. And it's odd to say, right, as much as Pique is the headline, Dembele's opener was a headline, Pedri was really good, as I said, Busquets and Alba and Balde, as good as everybody was, this game kind of felt like Frenkie de Jong. I know that sounds odd, and I want to really delve more into that as we go along, and there might be other moments in the season where we're talking about that. But I always try to think, if there's one player that kind of put their stamp or their fingerprint, if you dissect the game and try to look at whose fingerprint is on that game the most, there's argument that it was Frenkie de Jong today. And I think because of that goal, it does kind of sum it up in a way that if Ferran Torres had scored the first goal, I might have said it was Ferran Torres. Because I do think that was one of the only things missing from the Spanish forwards game today. Which is, again, an odd thing to say, but I don't want to overthink it. Even though Frenkie de Jong is probably the man of the match, we leave this match review talking about Gerard Pique, and we're going to continue to do that this week. So don't go anywhere. There's another game on Tuesday to close out, and that's in Osasuna And that's going to be a really, really challenging match up in the Mar. So that match is something to look forward to on Tuesday. And Barcelona will be leading the table until at least Monday when Real Madrid play. So look out for some conversations prior to the match and then after it, of course, as I kind of reset, figure some things out. I don't plan on really taking any breaks, but I'm going to figure out exactly what we're going to do for that World Cup content and see how I'm going to go about doing that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything because, again, I don't really plan on stepping away in any way. So expect a lot of content coming out while, we'll say, club football is on a break. And until then, as always, Forza Barca.